I have identified in my work 5 types of terrorism. First, state terrorism. Second, religious terrorism. Terrorism inspired by religion. Catholics killing Protestants, Sunnis killing Shias, Shias killing Sunnis, everybody killing everybody in the name of God, religion. Sacred terror, you can call it if you wish. So there is a state, there is church, there is crime, mafia, all kinds of crime commits terror. There is pathology. You know, Bumble was pathological. You're sick. You want attention of the whole world. You got to kill a president. You kill. You terrorize. You got to hold a bus. You do it. And so there is pathology. And fifth, there is political terror of the private group. Be the Indian, the Vietnamese, the Algerian, the Palestinian, the Baader Meinhof, the Red Brigade, whichever that is. Political terror of the private group. The oppositional terror, I call it. Keep these 5 in mind. And begin to move on. Keep in mind one more thing. Sometimes these 5, any 2 or any 3 can converge on each other. You start with protest terror. You go crazy, you become pathological, you continue. Goes on. The weathermen started with political terror. They simply got crazy. You see, they converge. State terror can take the form of private terror. For example, you're all familiar with it. The death squad in Latin America, or the death squad in Pakistan. And the government has employed private people to kill its opponents. So it's not quite official, it's privatized. You see what I'm saying? Convergence. Or the political terrorist who goes crazy and becomes pathological. Or the criminal who joins politics. All through in Afghanistan, in Central America, the CIA employed in its covert operations drug pushers. Drugs and guns often go together. Smuggling of all things go together. In fact, you can smuggle women, drugs and guns at the same time. And men too, if they are trying to migrate to the United States. Any number of convergences occur. First, the need to be heard. Now, imagine we are dealing with the minority group, the political private terrorist. First, the need to be heard. Normally, and there are exceptions, there is an effort to be heard, to get your grievances heard by people. They are not hearing it. Then a minority acts, and the majority applauds. The Palestinians, for example, the super terrorists of our time, were dispossessed in 1948. From 1948 to 1968, they went to every court in the world. They knocked at every door in the world. And they were told that they became dispossessed because some radio told them to go away. An Arab radio, which was a lie. Nobody was listening to the truth. Finally, they invented a new form of terror. Literally their invention, the airplane hijacking. And between 1968 and 1975, they pulled the world from its ears. They dragged us out, said, listen, listen. Well, we listen. We still haven't done them justice. But at least we all know and acknowledge. Even the Israelis acknowledge. Remember Golda Meir in 1970, Prime Minister of Israel, saying, there are no Palestinians. They do not exist. Well, damn well they exist now. You are cheating them at Oslo. At least there are some people to cheat now. You can't just push them out. So you see, the need to be heard is essential. One motivation there. State terror very often breeds collective terror. Do you recall the fact that the Jews were never terrorists? By and large, Jews were not known to commit terror, except during and after the Holocaust. Most studies show that majority of members of the worst terrorist groups in Israel or in Palestine, the Stern and the Irgun gangs, were people who were immigrants from the most anti-Semitic countries of Eastern Europe and Germany. Example is a bad thing, because example spreads. There was a highly publicized Beirut hijacking of the TWA plane. After that hijacking, there was hijacking attempts at 9 different American airports. American airports. Pathological groups or individuals modeling on the others. Even more serious are examples set by governments. When governments engage in terror, they set very large examples. And when they engage in supporting terror, they engage in other sets of examples. 6, absence of revolutionary ideology is central to victim terrorism. Revolutionaries do not commit unthinking terror. Those of you who are familiar with revolutionary theory know the debates, the disputes, the quarrels, the fights within revolutionary groups of Europe. The fight between anarchists and Marxists, for example. But the Marxists have always argued that revolutionary terror, if ever engaged in, must be sociologically and psychologically selective. Don't hijack a plane. Don't hold hostages. Don't kill children, for God's sake. Have you recalled also that the great revolutions, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Algerian, the Cuban, never engaged in hijacking type of terrorism? They did engage in terrorism, but it was highly selective, it was highly sociological, it was still deplorable, but there was an organized, highly limited, selective character to it. So absence of revolutionary ideology that begins more or less all of the post-World War II period has been central to this phenomenon. In the 1930s and 1940s, the Jewish underground in Palestine was described as quote unquote terrorist. Then new things happened. By 1942, Holocaust was occurring and a certain liberal sympathy with the Jewish people had built up in the Western world. At that point, the terrorists of Palestine, who were Zionists, the terrorists of Palestine suddenly started to be described by 1944-45 as freedom fighters. At least two Israeli prime ministers, including Menachem Begin, had actually, you can find in the books, posters with their pictures saying terrorist and prize this much. The highest prize I have noted so far was 100,000 British pounds on the head of Menachem Begin, the terrorist. Then in 1969 and from 1969 to 1990, the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, occupied the center stage as the terrorist organization. Yasser Arafat has been described repeatedly by the great sage of American journalism, I'm referring to William Safire of the New York Times, as the chief of terrorism. That's Yasser Arafat. Now, on September 29, 1998, I was rather amused, not quite happy, to notice a picture of Yasser Arafat to the right of President Bill Clinton, and to his left is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is known as Mr. Yahoo all over the Middle East. And Clinton is looking towards Arafat, and Arafat is looking literally like a meek mouse. And just a few years earlier, he used to appear with this very menacing look around him, with a gun appearing menacing from his belt. You remember those pictures, and you remember the next one. You see, why I have recalled all this story is to merely point out to you that the matter of terrorism is rather complicated, and terrorists change faster than the greenback does, much faster. So the terrorist of yesterday is the hero of today, and the hero of yesterday becomes the terrorist of today. This is a serious matter of constantly changing world of images in which we have to keep our heads straight to know what is terrorism and what is not, but more importantly to know what causes it and how to stop it.